Have you ever imagined what it would be like to live 3 days in complete harmony with your true essence? 3 days in which every word you say to yourself celebrates your unique journey, honors your invisible struggles, and amplifies the beauty of who you truly are. 3 days without that critical voice that many of us in the LGBTQIA+ community have internalized over years of facing a world that doesn't always understand us. Imagine waking up, and instead of hearing that familiar voice telling you to hide, be less, don't draw attention to yourself, you allow yourself to affirm, my authenticity is my greatest strength. My difference is a gift to the world. I deserve to occupy spaces being exactly who I am. This is the invitation I extend to you today. An invitation to a silent revolution that begins within you and has the potential to transform everything around you. Because when we free ourselves from the limiting narratives that society has imposed on us, the ones we've learned to repeat to ourselves, we open the doors to a full, abundant, and genuine existence. I want you to commit to me. Now, go to the comments and write, "Today I begin my journey of self-discovery and self-affirmation. My truth is my most powerful weapon." This is not just a nice phrase to leave in the comments. It is a declaration of intent, a sacred contract with yourself. It is the first step on a journey of reconnecting with your deepest essence, the one that exists beyond labels, beyond imposed expectations, beyond fear. 1. The revolution starts with internal language. For many of us in the LGBTQIA+ community, our journey began with a battle of languages. The language the world used to describe us versus the language we knew, deep down, to be true about ourselves. This duality creates a field of tension where the external voice often ends up infiltrating our internal dialogue. It is no coincidence that the first target of oppressive systems has always been to control language. When you control words, you control thoughts. And when you control thoughts, you control lived reality. That is why our first revolution needs to happen exactly there, in the language we use to define ourselves, to explain ourselves, to understand ourselves. For 3 days, I invite you to radically transform your internal vocabulary. Words have vibrational power. They are not just abstract symbols, but frequencies that resonate in our nervous system. When you constantly repeat, "I am inadequate, I am weak, I do not deserve love," your body absorbs these frequencies as absolute truths, creating emotional states that reinforce these beliefs. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his journal every day not just to record events, but to actively program his mind. He knew that the words we use to interpret our experience shape the experience itself. For those of us who have often grown up hearing exclusionary words, this practice becomes even more powerful. Every time we replace "I am inadequate" with "I am unique," we are rewriting decades of negative programming. Every time we replace "I don't deserve to be here" with "my presence enriches this space," we are reclaiming our right to fully exist. During these first 3 days, identify the automatic phrases that arise in moments of vulnerability. The ones that appear when you look in the mirror, when you make a mistake, when you face rejection. Write them down in a notebook. Notice your patterns. Then, for each limiting phrase, create an opposing affirmation that resonates with your deepest truth. If you find yourself thinking, "I will never find someone who loves me for who I really am," transform that into, "I attract relationships that celebrate my authenticity." If you think, "I need to tone down my expression to be accepted," replace it with, "My authentic expression attracts the right people into my life." Epictetus, a philosopher who knew oppression well because he was a slave, said that it is not events that disturb us, but rather the interpretation we give them. How many times has a look, a comment, an ambiguous gesture turned into a devastating story in our mind? "They are judging me. I am the butt of jokes. They don't respect me." Stoic practice teaches us to question these automatic interpretations. Is the person really judging me, or are they just distracted? Are they really making fun of me, or are they laughing at something completely unrelated to me? This questioning Exercise breaks the cycle of negative thinking that many of us develop as a protective mechanism. At key moments throughout the day, when you wake up, during downtime during the day, and before you go to sleep, repeat your new affirmations with full presence. Don't just mumble the words mechanically. Feel them resonate in your body. Visualize them as true. Embody them in your physical posture. When you say, "I am worthy of respect," straighten your spine, open your chest, breathe deeply. Let your body learn this new truth through sensory experience, not just intellectual experience. Stanford University neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has shown that when we combine positive affirmations with deep breathing and visualization, we create new neural pathways much more quickly. It's as if we're installing new software in our brains, one that recognizes and amplifies our intrinsic value rather than diminishing us. This practice works because our brains are incredibly plastic. Even after years of negative programming, we can create new connections, new interpretations, new realities. The key is consistent repetition, especially in receptive states like the moments right after waking and before going to sleep, when the mind is most suggestible. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, believed that true freedom comes from self-mastery, especially from controlling our thoughts. For those of us who seek freedom in a world still full of prejudice, this practice becomes a revolutionary act. We're reclaiming the right to define who we are on our own terms. It may seem too simple. Can changing words really transform decades of internalized messages? Yes, when we understand that words are not just words, they are seeds we plant in our minds that eventually become the reality we reap. 3 days of focusing on this practice won't magically eliminate all challenges, but it will create the foundation necessary for lasting transformation. As the old proverb says, "Take care of your thoughts, for they will become words. Take care of your words, for they will become actions. Take care of your actions, for they will become habits. Take care of your habits, for they will form your character. Take care of your character, for it will determine your destiny." 2. Embodying their authenticity. The second element of this transformation transcends words and manifests itself in the body. As LGBTQIA+ people, many of us have developed a complex relationship with our bodies, whether due to gender identity, imposed standards of beauty and behavior, or simply the constant stress of navigating spaces that are not always welcoming. The Stoics understood the deep connection between body and mind. They did not see the body as a mere vehicle for consciousness, but as an integral part of being, a physical expression of our inner truths. Therefore, the second phase of this transformation involves re-inhabiting your body with intentionality and presence. During these 3 days, I invite you to pay attention to how your body responds to different thoughts. When you repeat a positive affirmation, notice. Does your breathing deepen or become shallow? Do your shoulders relax or tense? Does your face open or tighten? The body does not lie. Even when our rational mind tries to convince us that we believe a new affirmation, our body reveals the truth about what we really believe at the deepest level. Try this exercise. Stand up and say out loud, "I love myself completely." Now, notice your posture, your muscle tone, your facial expression. Is there a connection between your words and your body language? If not, don't worry. This discrepancy is normal after years of disconnection. The important thing is to recognize it and begin working to realign your words and posture. Marcus Aurelius believed that virtue manifested itself not only in our thoughts, but in our physical actions. For him, the way we carry ourselves in the world was a direct expression of our inner philosophy. He deliberately practiced gestures and movements that reflected his highest values. For those of us who have often learned to contract our bodies, to take up less space, to modulate our voices and gestures in order to go unnoticed, this reconnection with our bodies is particularly transformative. When we begin to inhabit our bodies with pride and presence, we send a powerful message not only to the world, but most importantly to ourselves. For these 3 days, practice taking up space consciously. When you enter a room, breathe deeply and imagine yourself expanding. Allow your arms to rest naturally, your shoulders to open, your spine to lengthen. Make eye contact with ease. Allow your voice to resonate from a place of authenticity, without the modulations we have learned to adopt to fit in. This is not an exercise in confrontation, but in assertion. We are not trying to impose our presence, but rather to stop denying. It is a subtle but profound difference. The goal is not to dominate the space, but to fully inhabit the space that naturally belongs to us. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we do have complete control over how we respond. When someone looks at us strangely, we have a choice. We can shrink away, or we can remain centered in our innate dignity. This choice is not just mental, it is bodily. Practice small gestures of physical authenticity. If you naturally speak with your hands, allow yourself to do so. If your laughter is naturally loud, don't stifle it. If your walk is naturally expressive, honor that rhythm. These may seem like insignificant details, but it's in these micro gestures that we often hide our truth. Neuroscientists call this embodied cognition feedback, the phenomenon by which our gestures and postures not only reflect our mental states, but actively create them. When you force yourself to smile, even if you don't initially feel joy, your brain starts producing neurotransmitters associated with happiness. When you adopt a power pose for just 2 minutes, your cortisol, stress hormone levels decrease, and your testosterone, confidence hormone levels increase. Imagine the cumulative impact of 3 days of living in a state of body authenticity. You're not just changing your outward appearance, you're literally rewiring your internal biochemistry. This practice is especially powerful for those of us who struggle with body dystrophy or disconnection from our bodies. We begin not with the demand for immediate love of every physical aspect, but with the more accessible practice of mindful presence. Simply inhabiting the body as it is, breathing into it, moving it with awareness. These are revolutionary acts of self-care. Seneca believed that true power comes not from domination over others, but from mastery over our own responses. For many of us who grew up in environments where we had to constantly monitor our physical expressions to ensure our safety, relearning to inhabit our bodies with spontaneity is a profound act of liberation. During these 3 days, experiment with moments of free movement, dancing when no one is looking, stretching in ways that feel good to your body, breathing deeply in the midst of stressful situations. These practices create new neural associations that gradually replace patterns of contraction and fear. Remember, your body is not your enemy, nor is it a project to be constantly perfected. Your body is the temple where your consciousness dwells, the instrument through which you experience and interact with the world. Treating it with reverence, dwelling in it with presence, moving with it in joy, these are profoundly transformative practices. The third element of this transformation involves actively designing the reality you want to create, not just reacting to the reality that has been imposed on you. Here, we combine the power of positive self-talk and body presence with guided, creative visualization. Your brain does not clearly differentiate between imagined and real-life experiences. The same neural circuits are activated when you imagine an event in detail as when you actually experience it. This is a revolutionary discovery in modern neuroscience that confirms what ancient philosophers and spiritual practitioners intuited. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced what we would now call visualization. Before important encounters, he would imagine in detail how he would behave, the words he would use, the posture he would maintain. He was not just rehearsing, he was literally pre-creating the experience in his brain. For those of us who have often had to navigate complex social situations without role models, this practice becomes especially valuable. Over the next 3 days, set aside specific times to visualize in detail situations in which you express yourself authentically and are received with respect and acceptance. Imagine yourself in a business meeting, sharing your ideas with confidence. Visualize yourself in a social gathering, being authentically you, without filters or masks. Imagine yourself standing up for yourself clearly and calmly when necessary. The more vivid the details, the more powerful the impact. See the colors of your surroundings, hear the sounds, feel the physical sensations. Imagine the expressions on the faces of the people around you. Most importantly, feel the positive emotions associated with these experiences, the pride of being true to yourself, the joy of authentic connection, the ease of being at peace with who you are. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things themselves, but by our views of those things. Many of us have developed a habit of anticipating rejection, of visualizing the worst-case scenario, of imagining all the ways we could be excluded or misunderstood. This practice reverses that pattern. Instead of mentally rehearsing failure and rejection, you are consciously rehearsing success and acceptance. Over time, your brain begins to recognize these positive scenarios as real possibilities, not just distant fantasies. This doesn't mean ignoring the real challenges we face as a community. It means refusing to let these challenges define the limits of our imagination and, by extension, the limits of our lived reality. When we repeatedly visualize positive experiences, our nervous systems begin to recalibrate. The constant state of alert that many of us have developed, the subconscious expectation of rejection or danger, gradually gives way to a state of receptivity and openness. We become better able to recognize and welcome positive experiences when they actually occur. Seneca believed that much of human suffering comes from worrying about things that will never happen. We are more often frightened than hurt, he wrote, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By consciously directing our imagination toward positive possibilities, we break the cycle of anticipatory anxiety. During these 3 days, practice visualization at 3 specific times. In the morning, right after you wake up, when your brain is still in the receptive state between sleep and full wakefulness, visualize your day unfolding in a positive way, with you expressing your authentic self naturally. During the day, especially before challenging situations, take a few minutes to visualize the best possible outcome, feeling the positive emotions associated with that outcome. At night before bed, when your brain is preparing to process the day's experiences, mentally review the moments of authenticity you experienced, amplifying the positive feelings associated with them. This systematic practice begins to reshape your field of expectations. Instead of expecting the worst, you train your brain to recognize and manifest constructive possibilities. This is not magical thinking, it is deliberate neurological reprogramming. Olympic athletes have long used this technique. They practice not only physically, but mentally, visualizing each perfect movement thousands of times. When the moment of actual performance arrives, their bodies follow the neural pathways already established through mental practice. Similarly, when you consistently visualize successful social interactions, authentic expressions well received, boundaries respected, your nervous system begins to recognize these scenarios as familiar and possible, not as threatening and improbable. Modern philosopher William James said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their mental attitudes." This guided visualization practice is precisely that. A systematic shift in our mindsets that over time transforms our lived experience. Remember, you are not just imagining a better future. You are actively creating it, neuron by neuron, thought by thought, moment by moment. At the end of these 3 days, you will not have magically erased all the challenges we face as an LGBTQIA+ community, but you will have established a new internal foundation, a new relationship with yourself, that will serve as the foundation for all the transformations to come. This practice is not about toxic denial of real obstacles, nor about victim-blaming experiences of discrimination. It is about recognizing and reclaiming the immense power we have, the power to define our own identity, to inhabit our bodies with dignity, and to actively create our future from within. As lesbian poet and activist Audre Lorde said, "When I define myself, when I affirm myself, when I recognize my worth, it is then that I create the possibility of doing more than simply existing." These 3 days are your invitation to do more than simply exist. They are your invitation to flourish, to shine, to live with full and contagious authenticity. The journey begins today, with the words you choose, with the way you inhabit your body, with the visions you cultivate. And it all begins with a simple decision. The decision to take control of the narrative about who you are and who you are becoming. Do you accept this invitation?